All right, letting everybody in. Welcome, 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 Joey and Tom. Let's just make sure that Ross has the
friends.
I gotta get him in here because let me just see if he's. Hey Ross, you have the link. Yeah, it's the bit.ly/CoronaTV after show. It's in the email, but I can just put it up here. I'll just put it up here for you. You see that on the screen? Yeah, if you see on the screen there, if you just type bit.ly/CoronaTV after show into your browser, it will open up Zoom. bit.ly/CoronaTV after show, all lowercase. No, just CoronaTV after show. If you look on the screen, you'll see the URL there. I would tell you soon enough. Yes, you got it.
There he is.
Yes, you should quit, because I just quit you. I can't quit you, but I quit you. So, Mr. Ryan Campbell, I saw that you just gave a webinar/keynote the other day, did they successfully answer the question, what is your pink Cadillac?
They did. Yeah, it was unreal. So I did a virtual to Fidelity Investments, which was my first kind of like paid US gig. And then they wanted another one the next week. So I went and did another Fidelity group, and they've passed me on to 2 more. So hopefully it'll spread that way. So it's like, oh, it's the nicest feeling in the world. Takes some stress away. So
congratulations.
Nice.
Ross, Ryan flew around the world at the age of 19, wow. I think it was, and then wrote a book about it at the age of 20, cool. and then at the age of 21, he was confined to a wheelchair after an accident in a plane, and he has since regained the ability to walk and become a bit of a fellow speaker. So
wow, good for you. Where's home for you, Ryan?
In Nashville, mate. I moved to the US. I originally grew up halfway between Sydney and Melbourne, kind of on the southeast coast, about 6 hours drive north of Melbourne. So I grew up on a beach town. Awesome. It was beautiful. And then moved to the US 2.5 years ago. And I swung by NSA in Houston and watched you speak there. And it was just incredible.
Oh, okay.
So it was very,
That's
very
awesome.
cool.
I was gonna say I vaguely remember like meeting you or seeing you, so I'm like, that's cool, that's great. Well, that's so cool that you're in NSA. We'll have to connect for sure. That's congratulations.
I would love to. Thank you. Yeah, it's been it's been a wild year for sure. But.
And if anyone can make an introduction to NSA for me, I would I'd grease your palms with what do I have? I don't have any silver anymore. I don't have any gold anymore. I've got a Yeti Blue X mic, which.
So NSA for the non-speakers, it's the National Speakers Association, and it's basically our group of weirdos and freaks where we all sit around and we get together. We have local chapters, and there's a national conference every year, and I hope you guys both come. It's in Vegas this next year. This year went virtual, but you'll get 1,500 to 2,000 professional speakers that'll all. You sit at a table and you look around, a group like this, you go, oh, you got all your limbs. Paraplegic? Okay. Oh, cancer survivor?
It's not impressive.
Full survivor of a plane crash? Oh, you're a professional athlete, politician? Okay. And you find your tribe. It's just wild. It's a bunch of freaky weirdos that all do this for a living. So it's really, it's our safe place.
It sounds actually very Monty Python-esque.
Yes.
Like Life of Brian. Yeah,
Brian.
Exactly.
Yeah, Brian. Yeah.
Actually, it reminds me of a group of chefs that used to meet every year in Japan from around the world, and I think there were like 48 of the chefs that would come together and all just riff on different types of cooking and what they were doing and what they're experimenting with. And it was really cool to see all that happen over a few days.
Bob,
So,
where are you
anyway,
from?
I'm in Vermont.
Where?
I'm just south of Montpelier, the state capital.
Skied Stowe last year. That's a badass place.
That is a badass place. So good news about Stowe, I guess, from a tourist perspective is, of course, the you don't have to order your tickets ahead or anything this year, they're saying, because they're just trying to get people to show up.
Yeah.
So
you need Ben and Jerry to stand there and just give out free chunky monkey to everyone going up the slopes.
Seriously, I could probably arrange that. So that's cool. It's a small state. It's a interesting place to.
Burlington is one of the coolest towns. I have not been to. My two brothers went to business school in Dartmouth.
Oh yeah, my son went there
quite a bit. Yeah, that's cool.
So yes, and Burlington's waterfront is just a spectacular place.
Yeah,
and Bernie Sanders was the one that saved that from being an industrial zone and turned it into public parks. And it was the best thing they ever could have done for the state. So anyway, sorry,
Very
Joseph.
cool.
What do you mean? Sorry, this is the Zoom after show. This is the goal of the after show is the less you hear from me, the better.
Yeah. Well, it is a beautiful state. It's very small and it's easy to be a big fish in a small pond here. So that's helpful if you're trying to make a living here.
Tom and Joseph, where are you guys from?
I'm in Wilmington, North Carolina.
Okay.
Joey.
I live in San Francisco now, but as I mentioned, I grew up in Minnesota. And,
where about?
Rochester.
Oh, so I'm from Fairmont, just west of there.
I know exactly.
What year did you graduate?
85.
What were you, JM, Mayo? What were you?
John Marshall, yeah.
So Daryl Thompson's one of my closest friends.
Oh, wow.
Sean Podine.
Yeah. John Podine I actually played hockey with. So, yeah.
Big Podes. Big Podes.
He's a hell of a player, man. Hell of a player.
Great guy. Yeah, that's awesome. And
yeah,
Daryl, Daryl, I love Daryl, but Daryl played for the Packers, so he's dead to me.
I know. That's exactly it. That's exactly it. Yeah, we had a lot of good players come out of John Marshall.
Yeah. The
Rockets, tons of good hockey.
They won it all back in 79 or 80, so that's pretty cool.
Yeah, because I remember it still being in the locker room when we were there. But yeah, it's John Marshall Mayo is pretty much the big rival.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah, I feel your pain, man, and I really enjoyed listening to you today. It was great.
Thank you. That's nice. You're in San Fran now?
I'm in San Francisco. Yeah, I've been here
for
over 30 years. If you're familiar with the city, you know the Crooked Street.
Yeah.
Lombard. I live a block away. It's called Russian Hill.
Okay. Yeah, Russian. Yeah, of course.
If I took my computer and put it out the window, you could see Lombard Street from my house.
Cool.
So,
I'm actually there. I'm out there in a few weeks. I'm speaking out I'm in Dublin with a big. It's an artificial intelligence company, but and I have another gig down in Solvang outside Santa Barbara, and that's
that's a hike.
Yeah. That's where they filmed the movie Sideways.
Yep.
You guys saw
all the good wine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's that vineyard. So it should be pretty fun. But that's great. What line of business are you in, Joey?
I met Joseph through our mutual business. I was in the advertising business for the last 20 years, and then last 3 years I've been a stay-at-home dad, and I just wrote my first book. So.
And you wrote a book? What's your book?
Yeah. It's called Dirty Words: The Diary of a Recovering Douchebag, and it comes out in December.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Wow. Good for you. Good luck. That's exciting.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. It was the hardest part was writing it. I look forward to talking about it.
I saw you had a question, but I didn't stay up long enough for me to read it. But was it you that had the question?
No, I was just volunteering my Minnesota boy status.
Oh, okay.
Well, actually, we've got. I think it says Dean's iPhone, but I'm pretty sure it's Dr. Dean Allen who
Dean,
is.
Put on some pants and join the party, for God's sakes. Turn your camera on.
So I'm gonna set him up quickly. I actually met Dean. He was on the show early into this process. He did this. He's a historian, and he did an incredible presentation on comparing COVID to the 1918 Spanish flu, and then he since that he has, talking about beasts and Brian Habanas, had these webinars or these virtual events, all fundraisers, with some of the greatest rugby players and other sports stars in the history of South Africa. And but anyway, I know he had a question for you, Dean. I'm assuming it's you, right?
Yeah, it's me, Joseph. Don't worry, it's not some imposter. Sorry, gentlemen, I haven't put my camera on because I'm calling from South Africa, and Joseph will tell you the Wi-Fi here is pretty awful. So I hope you can hear me okay.
We can. Thank you.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Good.
I think you should just turn it on for 10 seconds so we can actually see if in fact you are wearing pants.
Well, I've just been for a run, so there we go. I'll just put that on. Can you see me?
Yeah.
Is that okay?
Yeah.
Good.
Perfect. Nice to see everybody. If it works okay, I'll leave it on, that's for sure. But no, thanks very much for that, Ross. Really, really appreciated the talk. But my question was, and it was quite a long one, and I know you ran out of time. As someone who's sort of transitioned from academia into public speaking, I've been a historian, sociologist in sports departments, kinesiology, as you call it over there, of course.
Yeah.
And I believe, like yourself, that sport can teach us so much. So in terms of your keynotes, how do you get by those event planners and potentially the audience, but certainly the people that book you? Now, I know that you're far better known than me, of course, but in the early days, how did you get past those people who were not sports fans? To explain to them, you don't have to be a sports fan to get the most out of this presentation.
You know what? That's really insightful. That was a challenge. You know, I was able to just kind of leverage it. I got a lot of video testimonials. I'm a real believer. Like my demo video has over 100 video testimonials, and I would get a lot of women, especially, saying, "I don't even like sports, but I love Ross's program because I love the stories, and I could relate to it for business." And that was sort of the social proof that I needed. And then, you know, once you get that momentum, it takes care of itself, but it's always a barrier. And quite honestly too, I don't want to be always known as a sports speaker. I mean, a guy like Jamal Mashburn, Joseph, I know a lot of those guys, and, you know, 90% of professional athletes fail as speakers because it's all me. And quite frankly, no one gives a shit about you. They care about selling more life insurance so they can make more money and, you know, have more time with their kids or hunting or golfing or traveling or doing shit they care about. So a lot of athletes fail that way. So I never wanted to be lumped into that category, being a sports speaker, but more along the stories and the, you know, like you obviously you've built a whole lifetime of intellectual capital studying kinesiology and sport and how it applies. And that's what people want. And but ultimately it's got to be about, you know, about what they do and about them. But, you know, this business, it's completely word of mouth. It's completely, you know,
isn't it?
Yeah. It's so, that's why I don't really care too much about social media and a lot of that. For me, all my gigs from people that saw me, that heard me. I mean, I don't feel like people are like, "Ooh, I saw that really clever remark on Twitter. I'd like to pay you 50 grand to come talk." You know, it's just, so I don't know. I hope that helps.
Yeah,
I'm not sure.
No, certainly. I mean, and social media, as Joseph will probably agree as well, it gives you a kind of a false sense of security in many respects. I mean, I, as Joseph said, I've been fortunate enough during lockdown to be in a position where I'm sort of stuck in the middle of nowhere, but I got the opportunity to interview, you know, some of the most famous rugby players South Africa have known, just really through good fortune. Yet you have a player like Brian Habana, you probably heard of, who's got,
that guy beat
hundreds of...
He beat the shit out of a cheetah in a race.
Well, I don't know if he did. I think the cheetah got him in the end, but that was one of the questions. That was one of the questions I wanted to avoid because he's sick of answering that, I know. But he's got hundreds and hundreds of thousands of followers. Yet we struggled to generate sort of 100 people to come to a free talk that night, and it really taught me a valuable lesson that despite all the, you know, the profile on social media, it does come to recommendation and things like that. So no, I appreciate it. What you're saying.
It's interesting, like, you know, Joey, you've got a book coming out, and, you know, the new world of books, you know, it's not so much what you're doing, it's how many followers, how many likes, how many clicks, how many, tell me how many people follow you on LinkedIn and how many Facebook friends you have. And it's really it's weird. I will say, obviously, Joseph has a really, really strong brand. I mean, you're consistent with your podcast, you're consistent with your messaging, and that's good. If you're going to do it, I mean, you've become a real, a real serious influencer. I mean, you look at a guy like Joe Rogan now, his podcast now, he's got more viewership than some major market television shows. So it's really shifted the influencer, everything about it. So,
and I'll just tell you something as well, which I share with everyone because I think it's important for people to hear. Ross, I'll ask you the question first, and then if you don't know the and then Dean, if you don't know the answer, in fact, anyone who doesn't know the answer, just will go in order. So how many episodes of Joe Rogan's podcast, had he put out when he was acquired or when the show was sold to Spotify, I guess it was? Ross, you want to take a guess? You go first because you're my guest.
500.
Dean?
Yeah, I'd say several hundred. It certainly would have had to be out there for a long time.
Ryan, do you know?
No idea, honestly.
So the answer was
1,500.
Well, you know the answer, Joey. I think you know. It was just under 1,500. And I think that for me, that became my North Star with doing this, with pivoting my own business, which was, you know what? Just, this is a Ross Bernstein South Dakota marathon, not a sprint. where probably, by the way, Ross, you're like running away from people who are like maskless.
I finished last in my category, by the way, just so you know. I 5.5 hours. It was pretty awful.
Well, because you were smart, you were hanging back from all the particles. But I just think, to me, that's a great lesson, right? Which is if you're in it to win it, and if you're in it for the long haul, then it is that quote today, right? Momentum is tomorrow's starting pitcher.
It's worth mentioning that Joe Rogan's podcast, someone made an offer to him 7 or 8 years previous to Spotify for about 20 million, and he turned it down. So he wasn't he wasn't into it.
What did he sell it for?
100 million.
I think it was more like 150, I heard, but what's 50 between friends?
Joe, so like about a month ago, Joe, I've never listened to the podcast. I'm not a podcast. I'm not a big podcast listener. Of course, unless it's Joseph Jaffe's, of course. Then
checks in the mail.
But Joseph and Bill Burr, the actor Bill Burr, started talking about my book, the hockey code, about fighting. So these guys made a segment where they were just talking about my book, and I didn't know, but I started getting like hundreds of orders, and I had no idea why. And finally, I just asked someone, like, what the hell happened? Like, what, and they said, oh yeah, they were talking about it on Rogan. So they all had, and I was like, wow, it was amazing.
So so here's an interesting question, right? With that, that's luck, but good luck, as you know, Gary Player, right? The more I practice, the luckier I get. Luck is what happens when preparation meets opportunity. So now this happens and you're getting sales. Did you think to yourself, let me now contact Joe Rogan's people and get on the show? Or you're like, I'm just going to head down and keep on doing what I'm doing?
I've been on thousands of TV and radio shows. It really is not, I don't mean to sound like a douchebag saying that, but it really wasn't that big of a deal. I'm not really trying to sell or promote anything. I'll tell you how I did sort of, not monetize it, but take advantage of it, is that I made a LinkedIn post and I thanked them. And I said, hey, really cool. I try and use social media. I have 3 criteria: to thank, honor, and acknowledge others. And if it doesn't tick one of those boxes, I don't do it. So like when your podcast when you send me the link, I'll put it on LinkedIn and I'll thank you and tag you and talk about how great you are and acknowledge you. And that's what I did for that. And, I probably got, 25,000 views. I'm not monetizing it. I don't know what to do with it, but I use it as an opportunity just to sort of say, kind of cool. One of my old books was getting some good pub lately, and and I said, hey, Bill Burr, loved your new movie with the King of Staten Island or whatever, so it's just sort of a way to say thanks. I've met Joe, his old partner, Mike Goldberg, who they do MMA fighting, was a former Minnesota Wild hockey broadcaster. So I know him really well. So we've kind of connected through those guys, but I don't know. Those guys get hit up all the time. You know what I mean? It's like, you don't want to hand them a script so if it was cool enough, they would have called me, but otherwise I'm not interested.
That's called Minnesota Nice, boys.
Minnesota Nice. That's right.
That's what it is right there.
Yeah.
You got it, Joey. That's cool.
That's great.
I've been in California for 30 years, so I'm not going to be nice. If someone talks about me, I'm going to hit them up and say, hey, I want to be on your show and talk about being a douchebag.
No, Joey. Part of your therapy is to de-douche your douchebaggery. I can see you slipping. I'll bring you back.
Thank you, Fred.
Hey, Ross,
this is the longest I've ever been quiet.
I know.
Notice that, Joseph? Because I made a resolution over the weekend to listen more than I talk. The old Epictetus, God gave us 2 ears and 1 mouth.
You failed, Tom. You failed. Tom, I want to see the notes first, and then you can ask your question.
Oh, my notes. I always, Ross, I always take notes.
That's cool.
Ross, this is page 1 of my notes today.
I'm honored.
Page 2, it goes on, and so.
That's pretty cool.
But I wanted to, inspired by what Ross has been saying today, and I wish we had another 4 hours on these things, but I wanted to address Dean's worry about how you overcome the potential obstacle that your actual expertise can present in the minds of some people. That's kind of an odd position to be in, right? Because you've got this great strength, and yet some people are going to say, no, we don't want sports because, half the people have never played sports or they're ladies, and he's probably going to be talking about guys' sports. I was a philosopher. I was a philosophy professor for 15 years. You talk about something to overcome. And I've done now 1,200 to 1,400 public speeches. Oh, and the Washington Speakers Bureau often said to me about your very worry, they often said to me, you know what? You're the hardest guy we've ever had to sell initially, but you're the easiest to resell.
Oh, wow. That's a huge
And like I did a talk for Merrill Lynch, and it led to 43 talks in a 3-year period.
Wow.
And it's because the way you sell yourself, Dean, is your background and expertise are important, but what you can do for them is really important. And when you stress the kind of the Venn diagrams, right? The area that the intersection area between what you know and what they need, it becomes very exciting because then you become like Ross. You become this voice that they're not accustomed to hearing, because they like Fidelity, right? With Ryan's experience, Fidelity brings in, a lot of people who are expert in financial services, right? Like Merrill Lynch did. I was when I got exclusive with the Washington Speakers Bureau, I was always the who's he amongst the who's who. They were bringing in, Georgia Barbara Bush and Schwarzkopf and Colin Powell and all these great people to talk about their great success. And then here's this philosopher. Like, what? What's the philosopher doing in this crowd? But I brought him stuff they hadn't been hearing. I brought him stuff that was really new. And so then word gets around, like Ross said, it becomes a word of mouth thing that just, you can't even control it. Once it gets, and Ross, I've never had your stamina. I mean, I'm so jealous of you and Joseph. I mean, everywhere I go turns out to be a subcontinent, and it's not impressive at all. I haven't gotten to all the continents. And I did, first time I did about 100 talks in a year, I said to myself, oh, geez, I can't be away from home this much. I'm a lazy person. I've got to tone this down. So I hired other philosophers to go and speak for me at various places. But I tell you the story, Dean, because if you think you've got a hurdle to overcome, think about being a philosophy professor, right? And it's not like there's a world of people out there saying, you know what we need? We need a philosopher, So, but you can overcome that. And once the word of mouth gets going, it just can become an unstoppable thing. But the most important is that you bring your confidence to every potential client. You bring your confidence, you bring your joy. you bring your enthusiasm and passion, and they're like, whoa, okay, this is great, you know.
Peter Drucker, and I think it was Peter. I think this was Peter Drucker. He was once asked, and this very into his life and his authoring career, and he had written, I don't know, let's say about 50. I'm just saying about 50. That's my that's my Ross statement. He'd written about 80 books, and he still probably wrote another 80. And he was asked what his best book was that he'd ever written, and his answer was the next one.
The next one.
And I think
like you in the show.
Yeah.
Well, and exactly. And you know what? So I can honestly say, even though I've had Joey on the show, I've had Tom on the show, I've had Ryan on the show, I've had Dean on the show, this was by far the best interview with Ross today, because until tomorrow. But I think
getting better. For one thing, you keep getting better. Yeah. I mean, you were pretty awful when I was on the show, but you're not bad now at all.
I know. I apologize. Well, you're like a ghost. You come back to haunt me every day just to.
No, I keep coming until you get really good. I'm going to be on this after show every day until you get pretty good.
Is that a promise or a threat? Because I hope it's both. Because I enjoy you here too. But I just wanted to say that, you know, if there was one lesson, and by the way, I have to like jump in like 30 seconds because I actually have a call, but what
so abandon your own after show. All right.
Well, I mean, it should be 30 minutes. And unfortunately each day is 4 hours because we had such great conversation. Ross, you are always welcome here every day, any day. You're pretty much going to see these ugly faces every day. But it's really become, at least until things return to some degree of normalcy, this is our family, and you're part of it now, and that's why like it's awesome to see Ryan here today and Dean here after a while.
Yeah, we want to pick Ross's brain more. We feel like we got to pick about 3 neurons today, and there's synapses everywhere we haven't even gotten to yet. So
yeah, I had questions too, so I do hope you come back.
Yeah.
Well, I mean,
I just want you guys to know, Ryan and Joseph, we're already connected on LinkedIn. Joey, Tom, and Bob, I just sent you LinkedIn invitations.
Oh, good.
I saw that.
Dean, awesome. Dean, what's your last name?
Allen, A-L-L-E-N. I'll find you as well.
So I tell you what I'll do is hopefully